Hey, it's the conference championship previews. Ladies and gentlemen, the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for January 23rd, 2025. I am Aaron Schatz. You know me as the DVOA guy from FTN Fantasy. He is Mike Tanier. You know him from his Substack, miketanier.substack.com. We are here with the big conference championship preview. As always, we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, which is the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Do like I do and get all your Noah Gray overs this week on Underdog Fantasy. Deposit match for up to $1,000 with code FTN. If you've been listening to us all year, you're already on Underdog Fantasy, but if you're not, you really need to be. Code FTN for the deposit match. Celebrate the playoffs with Underdog Fantasy. As always, we are here live Mondays and Thursdays at 11 a.m., although that's about to change. We'll get into that, but Michael Allen Brewer, you can make comments. You can ask questions. Michael Allen Brewer says, I enjoyed the stats in Mike Tanier's Substack this morning.
Yes.
I would think the defensive holding stats would correlate with time before passing due to mobility. Now, we'll talk a little bit about this before we talk about Washington and Philadelphia. We'll talk about the Chiefs and the Bills. Mike, tell me about the stats that you put on the Substack this morning.
Well, I went searching for the smoking gun, the proof that the Chiefs get all the calls. And you may be shocked to learn that I did not find a smoking gun or proof that the Chiefs got all the calls. But after finding that in a lot of statistics that you think of as getting all the calls, like roughing the passer and defensive pass interference, the Chiefs are actually below average and benefiting from those penalties. But defensive holding was the interesting one. The Chiefs blew away the field in most defensive holding penalties that they benefited from 2021 to 2024. In answer to the question, maybe it correlates with that. That's a deep statistical correlation to go hunting for. But when I went looking for it, saying, aha, maybe everyone's onto something, the defensive holding stats were more in 2021, 2022, which gave me the impression that the correlation was Tyreek Hill. More recently, the Chiefs are just, in the average tone or maybe above average in that particular statistic.
Although Hill moved on in 2022, right? It was 2021 was his last year with the Chiefs.
Yes. So it was 16 defensive holds in 21 that led the league. 15 in 2022 that led the league. Went down to 13, which is still high. But then this year, the year that we're talking about all the calls, it was 8 defensive holds benefited from by the Chiefs, which was about 5th or 6th in the NFL.
Before we get to previewing the games, we wanted to talk a little bit about the coaching wheel.
Yes.
Bill Houston says that someone forgot to tell the Jaguars you are supposed to fire your incompetent GM before you interview the hotshot coordinators. Yeah. It's clear that what happened was people didn't want to take the job in Jacksonville, and the Cons realized why. It was Trent Baalke, and so they had to get rid of Trent Baalke, but at this point, too late to get the hotshot coordinators that they wanted.
Right. It looks like both Robert Saleh and Liam Cohen, who I think they were pretty high on, walked away because of that. We don't know. We're not flies on the wall in the room. The timing of this suggests that it soured like in the room. Because these guys, if they didn't like Baalke based on his reputation, would have made a phone call. This might be who was that Dolphins? It wasn't Tannenbaum. It was one of the other guys years ago who'd asked these insane questions in the room and was.
Oh damn! I can't. Is it Ireland?
Was it? I think it was Ireland. Yes. Who would ask?
They asked some prospect about his mom being a hooker or something.
Yes.
Like, really terrible. Like quite a terrible question.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a feeling something like that was going on, and that was Shad Khan's hint that maybe the call was coming from inside the building there.
By the way, I can't hear about Liam Cohen without thinking of a gas face by third base where they say Elroy Cohen gets the gas face. I always think Liam Cohen gets the gas face.
The best thing about that band was that they complained about other bands sampling over a sample of Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer.
Yes.
You got a lot of credibility, like a very audible sample of it, like Peter Gabriel singing in the background while they're rapping. So great use of credibility, guys.
So the Lions lost both of their coordinators. That's the big
Yes.
coaching news of the week. Aaron Glenn to the Jets, Ben Johnson to the Bears. Ben Johnson to the Bears makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, to the Jacksonville would too. Like, I would think he would want to go to a team where he feels like he has a talented young quarterback.
Right.
The idea that he was going to go to the Raiders because Tom Brady was going to convince him that they had a clean slate to start from scratch never made sense to me. You don't want to start from scratch. You want a quarterback.
Right. Quarterback, a reasonably high draft pick, some weapons, things like that. Yeah, it was the Raiders and their fan base seemed to believe that was going to be the case, which was strange.
I mean, I don't know if Ben Johnson can teach Caleb Williams to get a better clock in his head and take fewer sacks, but I would think that they're going to have an improved offense next year.
He can teach the line maybe, or get the line blocking better. Interesting. I don't know where Hank Fraley's is right now. Hank Fraley was the offensive line coach. He was interviewing in Seattle. Seattle had a couple options there. I want to know where he goes. I would imagine Campbell might try to keep him. I imagine Johnson or Glenn might try to grab him. It doesn't sound like Glenn is doing so. That's a guy, obviously, who had a lot of impact on the Lions' success, who's very coveted. I'm curious to see where he's going to go.
Glenn's always been very well respected. And the last couple of years, I think he's been seen as a head coach in waiting. And he did a really good job this year with the Lions, keeping them motivated even as everybody got injured.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good hire by the Jets. The problem is that they're still the Jets. So they still have the same owner, and they still have to figure out what to do about Aaron Rodgers. And there's some talk that Glenn wants to keep Rodgers around, which I would think, I mean, Rodgers might be better than whatever other quarterback you could get, but do you really want to start your locker room out that way?
Yeah, let's keep the underminer, the underminer in chief in the room here. My theory is, I know it sounds like Glenn is bringing Mark Brunell with him as quarterback coach, which is great. I saw Todd Haley's name on the list of.
I saw that listed. Yes.
I think you bring Todd Haley in as like a fire and forget missile. Todd Haley, go in, piss Aaron Rodgers off. He quits, then we fire you. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Blow up a hotel room together.
Bill Houston wants to know what the Raiders are going to do for general manager and coach. They have hired a general manager. His name is John Spytek, and he comes from the Tampa Bay organization. And he has a great name. Spytek.
Spytek. The Fast and the Furious gang, they fight Spytek all the time.
They'll find a coach. Listen, there's only 32 of these jobs. People do want them.
Yes. We're on the Discord and on the DVO, and the guys will be like, who would take this job? Who would take this job? And it's like, all coaching jobs that are available are bad. That's kind of the point. The last guy failed and everything's effed up. That's the point. These guys have to jump in. The Raiders had a hire list. I wrote it the other day. I mean, Pete Carroll was on it, but there was a hiring interview list of normal candidates, and they'll get one of those. Having a GM now helps. Having Brady to help broker the deal is going to help.
All right, let's talk about the championship games. We'll start at 3:00 with the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles. The weighted DVOA that adjusts for Week 18 and adjusts for the Hurts injury now has the Commanders 8th and the Eagles 3rd.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's no question that the weakest unit remaining in the playoffs is the Washington Commanders defense. But if you look at weighted stats, they're 17th. So they have improved in recent weeks.
Right.
Even their run defense has improved, but honestly, not that much.
Right.
Like, I think this is a real problem for them. They were 31st in second level yards allowed this year. They were 26th in open field yards. They were 28th in yards before contact.
That's bad.
Right when the Eagles were 3rd on offense in yards before contact. They're 17th in run defense in DVOA since week 12, including the playoffs. So that's the big Washington has improved on run defense period.
Right.
And they're 17th.
The 17th, which I mean, first of all, I think takes the first Eagles matchup directly out of it. I think that's your cutoff in week 11. And then mixed into that is one game where Saquon Barkley had some huge runs, even though Jalen Hurts wasn't there, and a playoff game against the Lions where the Lions kind of abandoned the run, even though Jamar Gibbs was out.
They were the DVOA is horrible in that because the Lions running game was incredibly efficient.
Right. So I wonder what the Commanders have. I know Bijan ran real well against them too. So I wonder what they have in there that is giving them like a league average DVOA.
Yeah, they have a couple games that are kind of league average that are good, but it's still, to me, that's like, if your big improvement is that you're now average, that's not great.
They got the Cowboys twice and the Saints and Titans in that data, in addition to the Buccaneers, Falcons, Eagles, and Lions. So they obviously shut some people down. They had to have shut some people down.
Camden Caps wants to know, what is the word on how healthy Jalen Hurts really is?
Practice is happening as we speak, a couple miles away. He was a limited in practice officially yesterday, and what was a walkthrough, which was not open to the public.
It sounds like he's going to play.
He's going to play.
I don't know how limited he'll be.
Don't know.
But, they'll run a lot. Washington, I will say Washington, one of Washington's weaknesses is not one for Hurts to attack. They are 30th in passes up the middle, which, of course, Hurts doesn't really do.
What are those? One of the things the Eagles have to do is get the ball short into the flats more. They had a little bit of success in the snow against the Rams early in the game against that. I think that's a place where you can exploit weaknesses, get the ball in front of Lattimore, get the ball in space to Goddard a little bit. By the way, Goddard just popped up on the injury report. He's on the injury report for the Eagles, and Dan Jurgens, the center, popped up on the injury report with, I believe, a back injury. And the Eagles actually signed Cameron Irving, a longtime veteran journeyman center. So that's a little bit of a keep an eye on that, because a sudden center shift for a team that does pushes and is in shotgun all the time, and the weather's going to be okay, but it's still going to be cold. Watch out for that.
I think, to me, it just comes down, like, the Eagles have the best defense in the league, and the Commanders' defense is bad. Mm-hmm. And yes, the Commanders scored a lot against the Eagles defense in the last game between these two teams, but they also had 5 turnovers.
Yes.
So the overall efficiency wasn't great.
There were some huge plays, some of which were caused by tempo, and I wrote about tempo today. People want to.
Yes, the no huddle thing, where Washington runs much more no huddle than anybody else in the league. But the Eagles were 5th in defense against no huddle. So that's not really a weakness.
No, it was like 1 or 2 mistakes and lots of boom.
By the way, the Eagles are 3rd on offense with no huddle.
Yes.
In how often they used it and how good they were when they used it. So don't be surprised if the Eagles go with some no huddle.
Right. The Eagles like running from it in particular. They like getting up to the line quickly and hammering you with Saquon. They like doing everything with Saquon.
One thing that surprised me about the Eagles defense is I looked at the coverage DVOA, because it was obviously really good for the 3 main corners. But even in the limited time that he played in the regular season, Isaiah Rodgers had a good rating.
Yes.
Like, he's the weakness, right? Like, if Quinyon Mitchell is hurt, then they have to go to Isaiah Rodgers. And obviously, the opponent is going to pick on Isaiah Rodgers. But he's not maybe as bad as we think he is.
Yeah, he's probably one of your better number 4 corners in the NFL. Quinyon says he's going to play, by the way. And when you look at the picking line, because the Rams picked on him a little bit, there was a lot of situations where he was there. He was not beaten, destroyed, or things like that. He just wasn't quite able to make the play, against on a perfectly thrown ball, etc. That said, I think we're going to see Quinyon.
One of the interesting things is that the Eagles, by FTN charting, were mostly a 1 high safety this year, which is not what you think of when you think of the Fangio defense. But Daniels really struggled against 2 high safeties. So I'm thinking they go back and play more 2 high safeties in this. You talked about this on Monday, that you think that some of that has to do with the way that CJ Gardner-Johnson rotates at the snap.
He rotates up like 2 seconds before the snap now, instead of at the snap, which would have called it a 2 high. But one thing the Eagles can do, especially with Fangio's system, is disguise all that, make everything look like 2 high, and then try to force Daniels into mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've been saying on various podcasts that I've been on, this isn't a stat thing, but the most impressive thing about Daniels is that he looks like he's just got no pressure at all. I don't mean pass pressure. I mean like mental pressure. Like, he is totally living up to the moment, and I don't feel like the moment is too big for him or that he's going to crumble, but it's a really good defense he's going against. And it's just, I don't think the Washington offense is better than the Washington passing game is better than the Philly passing game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that difference is enough to make up how much better the Eagles are running the ball and on defense.
On defense. And I think the Commanders have a special teams advantage, but I don't think that's going to make a big difference. Is that correct?
I think the special teams are pretty similar. I think they probably are specific places where they each have an advantage. Like the Washington has a good punter.
Yes, but Trustway is a better punter. Elliott's had been trouble from 50 yards, but the Commanders have had juggled kickers. They have Gonzalez out there. He has some misses. Let me say this about Daniels. I was writing some pre-writes and thoughts. I've seen rookies who are better deep passers than Daniels, like, Herbert or Roethlisberger. I've seen rookies who are better runners than Daniels, like Lamar Jackson. I've seen rookies that were like better game managers than him, like even Mac Jones, for example. I've never seen a rookie who was as good a combination runner, deep passer, and game manager as Daniels. I've never seen that triple threat as a rookie who was that ready to do all those things, including the soft skills. And that's what's amazing about the young man.
He does throw deep less often than the league average.
Interesting.
Which does kind of take away an Eagles' strength.
Yes.
But he's not very good throwing to the middle compared to the sides. And that's an Eagles' strength, is throws to the middle. And I don't think the Eagles follow, I think because the cornerbacks were so good this year, they didn't follow the number one receiver as much. They would if it was Quinion Mitchell on the number one receiver, that was fine. And if it was Slay on the number one receiver, that was fine. So, I mean, McLaurin will get his, but I would think Diami Brown would have a hard time having another big game.
I'm stunned how Diami Brown turned into Lynn Swann a couple of weeks ago because, he's just a good he was just a good vertical threat. Maybe he's developing now into something else. This isn't a great matchup for
him. I think the line is Eagles -6.
Yep.
With a total of 47.5.
Yep.
I will say that my system likes the under.
Okay.
I guess if you made me have to pick,
mm-hmm.
I would pick Commanders +6.
Okay.
Solely out of worry that Jalen Hurts is not 100%.
That seems like a fair thing. Now, I'm not going to make any move until I know more about the Juergens injury and maybe get a little bit. We won't get any detail about Hurts because what they're going to do today is they're going to have the media in there for 10 minutes. He's going to jog around a little bit, throw some passes, then they're going to take the media out. We're not going to get anything there. But I like that. If I'm doing that, and again, I'm not doing that because I'm an Eagles fan, but if I'm doing that, maybe consider teasing it a little bit. Give yourself a few more points as the Commanders. And if you like the under, tease the number up a little bit for yourself.
That would be an interesting teaser to do something like Commanders +12 and under 53.5 or something.
Right. You probably have some meat on the bone there. I can't pull it up right now. But that would be a play to insulate yourself if you're thinking that way.
All right. AFC Championship game. The Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs again. Bills would be second in weighted DVOA. Chiefs would be seventh if you take out Week 18. Line is Chiefs -2, same total, 47.5. Week 11, when they met, the Bills did not have Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Matt Milano, or right tackle Spencer Brown.
Wow.
The Chiefs did not have Hollywood Brown, Charles Omenihu, Jalen Watson, or Isaiah Pacheco, or their kicker, although that didn't matter because the rookie they had kicking at the time hit all the extra points, so that wasn't a problem.
Right. That's
it was a very different lineup of play. There's a lot of players in this game that weren't in the last game, and then there's the players that are hurt, which is mostly on the Bills' side.
Yes.
Where Benford, who's their best corner, is in the concussion protocol, but he's practicing limited, and it sounds like he'll be able to play.
Yes.
Taylor Rapp, the safety, I'm not so sure about.
He was a do not practice yesterday. They are still listing him as day to day. I get the impression he's an out based on the way everything is going. Teron Johnson, who got hurt last week, is fine. He was a full participant.
Obviously, we know Spagnuolo loves to blitz. Josh Allen was 9th in DVOA against the blitz. This is not CJ Stroud. But he's still better if you don't blitz him.
Right.
He's very good with a blitz, but he's even better if you don't blitz. So Spagnuolo is going to do his thing.
You don't, you don't just want to sit there and let him dictate the strategy. And of course, the Bills are going to try to avoid the blitz by running the ball, being very balanced, doing a lot of quick game because they've had a lot of success with that this year.
Yes. The Chiefs' offense, the running game in the game against the Bills was pretty good. While the Bills' running game was not.
Right.
But for the season, the Bills' running game is much better. And the Chiefs are last in the league in explosive run rate, yards after contact, and missed tackle rate.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable. I mean, it comes from you pull Kareem Hunt off the scrap heap.
Right, and Pacheco missed half the season.
Right, and then Pacheco's fine, but like he's not Saquon or anything like that. And you go back to the fact that the Chiefs try to use their quick game and their end around game and things like that as a running game, probably to a fault. It's hard to, sometimes it's crazy the way they avoid running the ball.
And the other thing I noticed in watching the Week 11 game, which I watched yesterday, is Noah Gray. There was a ton of Noah Gray in that game. I think that the Chiefs will go a lot with the 12 and 13 personnel. The Chiefs offense is third in DVOA if you're in base defense, but 13th if you're in nickel.
Okay.
And we know the Bills like to play nickel.
Yes.
So you want to try to get all these tight ends on the field and force the Bills to replace Taron Johnson with Dorian Williams, the linebacker, who's not great in coverage.
Right. And now if you've got Rapp out, that kind of thins you out at safety. You're going to have Hamlin at 1, and they have a nickel safety.
Rookie named Cole Bishop would be Rapp's backup. I think he was a second-round pick.
Okay. He's one of the guys that they would use there. And then you have an opportunity to possibly mismatch him against Kelsey or Gray or somebody else that you put in the middle.
Listen, Kelsey, I think we all kind of expected this. Like, he struggled during the season. This was Kelsey's first year with negative DYAR.
Wow.
But I think we all expected when we got to the playoffs that he would turn it on because he knows how to find holes in zone.
I guess I didn't because I figured, well, if he's washed, he's washed. And if you're looking for him and no wide receiver one emerged to take the pressure away, that I was stunned at how easily he was finding holes in zones against a very good defense. This is a more familiar foe, though, which, could be a problem.
One of the interesting stats I found, both teams this year were much better on defense against wide receivers lined up outside than against wide receivers lined up in the slot.
Okay.
I know that's weird because Bills fans really believe Taron Johnson is one of the best slot corners in the league. And maybe some of those are plays where someone other than Taron Johnson is covering that slot receiver or it's a zone or something. And as far as the Chiefs go, McDuffie played outside much more than he played in the slot. So this isn't an issue of cracking on McDuffie or anything like that. But both of these defenses gave up a lot to slot wide receivers. So I think you'll see a lot of Shakir and you'll see a lot. I don't know who the Chiefs prefer to have in the slot over who else they prefer. Hopkins has somewhat disappeared a bit. So has Amari Cooper has somewhat disappeared a bit.
Hopkins and Amari Cooper are going to be live streaming the game.
There was a good amount of Cooper in the Week 11 game, though.
Yes. No, he was in the system. He was part of their offense, and then he wasn't. Hopkins the same way. Hopkins had a bunch of big plays when he first arrived and really just disappeared last week. You'll probably see Hollywood Brown in the slot.
Yeah, which if that's a weakness for the Bills, that's a problem.
Right, and do the shallow drag. He's a shallow drag guy, and drag him across and see if he can get you some yak.
One other stat. The Chiefs faced a league-high 50 scrambles during the regular season, allowing 7.5 yards per carry. And, of course, Allen had like a 26-yard scramble touchdown against them to win the game in Week 11.
That's right.
So watch. There's going to be a lot of Josh Allen scrambling in this game.
It's amazing that the Chiefs had that many scrambles. You think of the division, and you're facing Aiden O'Connell. And Herbert's not exactly a great scrambler. And Nick's is. Right. But you would think the league leaders in this would be like NFC, AFC North teams, et cetera.
Because if you're like the Bengals and you face Lamar Jackson and either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, and then whoever's in Cleveland.
Right. DTR does nothing but scramble,
But no, Kansas City faced a league-high 50 quarterback scrambles during the regular season, and they allowed a 60% success rate and 7.5 yards per carry.
That's a problem. That might be Spags overloading blitzes to one side. Guy takes off to the other side. Kind of like we'll accept those scramble yards in exchange for the sacks and chaos we might get on.
There was definitely a where's the spy? Why is there no spy? Like, especially when Allen ran for that touchdown right up the middle. It was like, there's no spy here.
No spy. Spy tech. They need spy tech.
Yeah, they need spy tech. All right, the line is Chiefs -2. The total is 47.5. I like over.
All right.
That was my bet of the week for FTN staff bets, was over 47.5 in this game.
The great thing about the over is that I don't have to think about the matchups anymore. Yes. I don't have to think about the matchups. I can just say over. Because I don't have any sense of this game. There's too much history behind it.
I feel like there's a lot of reason to pick the Chiefs from a professional perspective.
Okay.
If you pick the Bills and the Chiefs win, everyone is going to say to you, why are you so obsessed with stats? Don't you understand that Mahomes always wins? If you pick the Chiefs and the Bills win, the response is going to be, well, of course you pick the Chiefs because Mahomes always wins. I can't fault you for picking Mahomes. So basically, it's all set up to make you pick Mahomes just for the sake of him being Mahomes, even no matter who you think is actually going to win, just because no one will criticize you for picking Mahomes if it turns out that they don't win.
It's been a long season, and we're both dragging a lot of baggage with us.
I'm more concerned with Benford. I feel like there's no clear number one receiver for Benford to cover, but Benford is their best corner, and I would not want to be missing him in this game.
Right.
It's not bad enough that I would say, for a while I thought I was going to say, if Benford doesn't play, I pick the Chiefs, and if Benford does play, I pick the Bills. I don't think he's that important, but I think he's pretty important. If you made me pick this game for money, I would take the Bills because they have the +2. Mm-hmm. But I think this is pretty 50-50. I think if you look at Chiefs playing better in recent weeks and home field advantage and whatever Mahomes magic you want to believe in, I don't think that's enough to make the Chiefs better than the Bills, but I think it's enough to make the Chiefs equal to the Bills.
You know, a couple of years ago when we were at the Super Bowl together and it was Chiefs-Eagles, and, you said to me, the system really likes the over, but otherwise it's kind of a pick 'em. We both spent the entire week just walking around Radio Row, doing podcasts, and especially me, I just kept saying, you know what, just play the over. Just play the over. If you don't have a rooting interest, just play the over. And we were geniuses. We made people money.
This one especially, because if this thing gets to the end and they're like trading blows in the fourth quarter, you will be very happy to have played the over.
You'll be happy to play the over if it turns into one of those games for the ages. So I'm just going to sit there and say we're going to take the over, let the chips fall where they may, and enjoy the football, because what you just described to me sounded like we're burning out here on like our 17th Bills Chiefs game and trying to find like the edge in it.
Bill Houston says, I think having Watson, Omenahu, and Hollywood tips it towards the Chiefs, but having Tooney play left tackle is a problem. The thing about Tooney playing left tackle, though, is it's less of a problem than having Wanya Morris play left tackle, which was what you had in week 11.
Yes.
So Tooney, the Tooney is not a great left tackle, but he's a better left tackle than their other options. And I think Caliendo's been fine at left guard. So I think their offensive line is better off now.
Right. When you get that professional there who's not going to make the obvious mistake, that doesn't mean he doesn't get beat. Doesn't mean he doesn't get like destroyed at the snap, things like that. That's about as good as it's going to get for the Chiefs. I was looking at some Greg Rousseau sack props and things like that I might play to entertain myself.
It's definitely, we're going to come back on Monday and we're going to talk all about, what this means for these guys' legacies and everything. And both like the Baltimore game, that there's so much of that legacy talk is wrapped up in this game. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's not that way for Philly, Washington. Right? No. Like, I think, if Philly wins, no one's going to say oh, look at Jaden Daniels, couldn't get it done in the playoffs. The guy's a freaking rookie. And if Washington wins, it probably will be because Hurts is hurt.
Right.
In which case you can't really drag the dude for being hurt.
Right. And the baggage of last year for the Eagles in terms of, they're fighting with each other. And I think that's been erased over the last.
Oh, that's all gone. Yeah.
You know, look at the wins that team has put together. The infrastructure of the team is sound. You might lose Kellen Moore. You're not going to lose Fangio, et cetera. So, yeah, all of the legacy stuff is on the other side. And the bottom line with all this legacy stuff is, you know, do you remember John Elway, Jim Kelly, and Dan Marino? You remember all of them, right?
Yes.
So if you remember all of them, it doesn't necessarily mean that like the one who reaches the most Super Bowls is the one who gets remembered and everyone else is treated like garbage historically.
I will also point out 2 examples of teams that I will compare the Chiefs to.
All right.
The first is the 1990 49ers, who are also coming off back-to-back Super Bowls.
Okay.
And started by going 10-0, but with a lot of close wins.
Interesting.
And DVOA only had them 4th, and they lost in the conference championship game to the Giants, who had the higher rating.
Okay, that was still a Montana team.
That was Montana got hurt in the 4th quarter.
And it was Phil Simms.
I think that was the year that
Hostetler comes in as 90, and they go on to beat the Bills in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Okay.
And the other team that I'll compare the Chiefs to is the 2006 Patriots.
Yes.
Because, yes, the Patriots did lose in the playoffs in 2005. But here we were again in 2006. Peyton Manning had never beaten the Patriots in the playoffs.
Right. Right.
And they go to Indianapolis, and the Patriots take a 21-6 lead into halftime. And
with a pick six.
Manning has never beaten the Patriots in the playoffs.
Right.
And then came out in the second half and completely destroyed the Patriots, and the Colts go on to win their first Super Bowl. Like, just because Mahomes has won the last 2, just because Allen hasn't beaten him in the playoffs, doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future. Mm-hmm. There's a good chance that it will happen. There's a good chance the Chiefs will win too, but it's not, I don't feel that the past dictates the future.
Also, it snowed in New Orleans this week. If that's an omen for any team, that's only an omen for one team, folks. They're making you feel welcome.
They're making Buffalo fans feel welcome. I think both Buffalo and Philadelphia fans would feel welcome with the snow.
We'll feel welcome, yes, but we're not the capital of snow, USA here.
No, that's true. Lake effect, Gulf effect snow. Gulf of America affects snow.
Pontchartrain. Lake Pontchartrain affects snow as hit New Orleans. And Mobile, by the way. I can't wait to pack my my snowshoes for Mobile.
So, yeah, Monday, folks. Monday, I'll be here with Brian Knowles. Mike will be on the way to Mobile for the Senior Bowl. Please be sure to check his Substack for all the Senior Bowl coverage. Brian Knowles will be here with me to break down the conference championships games, and then we will take a week off, and we will turn on Thursday before the Super Bowl from New Orleans, where Mike and I will both be there in New Orleans. We'll do the show from there. See if we can get someone else on as a guest or something and preview the Super Bowl.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. All right. So Monday, you'll see me. You won't see Mike. Everybody just have a great time and enjoy these games. Try not to get too wrapped up in the legacy talk and just enjoy the fact that it's going to be really good football, 2 really good games. And I will see you guys Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Mike Tanier, I'm Aaron Schatz. So long, everybody.